Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video I'm going to talk to you about this Maxpedition TT26 and why I think if your intent is to use this for the, I would say, outdoor bushcraft application, you're probably going to have a little bit of a hard time. Now, what I've done is I've assembled a number of different items that I think are fairly representative of what most people would be typically trying to use in this backpack as part of a bushcraft or outdoor kit. Now, let's be realistic. Everybody's experience is a little bit different. Everybody has different needs, different gear, and their overall needs are going to vary quite a bit, but I do think that I have a reasonable, I would say, sample of gear here to show you. Now, the intent of this video is to show how it fits in this bag so we can take a look at it and make some assumptions. Now, this bag is one that I saw for the first time at SHOT Show 2020 with Carlos from Daily Carry Solutions. We had the opportunity to take a look at this with Tim Tang from Maxpedition, and at the time, I definitely was intrigued by this bag. Now, there is a prior video where I've taken a look at this for the very first time, took a look at the overall fit and finish, the different features, and I started to get a feeling for this. So this is the second video in a three-part series, this one here being applied to the outdoor application, and the third will be on the urban EDC application. So at this point, I do have a whole bunch to show you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. So this Maxpedition TT26. The first thing you need to know is this is a 26-liter pack. Now, this bag was designed with the intent to be a bit of a crossover between what Maxpedition is calling the modern woodsman bag and also a travel bag or urban EDC option. So that's the first thing. I'm not going to go into full detail on all the features of this bag. If you do want to see all the features, do me a favor, take a look back at one of my prior videos. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you the gear that I'm going to try to fit in this bag, and we're going to take a look at how each one of these pieces might fit in here to assemble myself a kit. Now again, keep in mind, your needs might be different. Is the intent for this to be a day bag? Maybe you're just carrying it on a day hike. Is this going to be used for a bushcraft bag? Do you need tools and supplies? Is this going to be used for a lightweight overnight bag? Hard to say. So I have a number of different items here that would really apply to different scenarios. So again, we're going to need to make some assumptions. This is not going to be perfect, but I think it's important for me to show you these different types of gear so that you can think about how it would apply to your kit and what you might be able to do with this bag. And so now, as you can see here, I have a number of items here that I think are worth showing you and talking about how these will fit in the Maxpedition TT26. Now, keeping in mind the exact time of year right now, it is mid-fall, leaning a little bit more towards some of that wintry mix. So we just need to keep that into consideration. This is not necessarily a specific seasonal type of kit. However, there are some things that I've included, like, for example, some gloves and a hat and a fleece that may come into play for the cooler months. Now, you'll see here a mix of things. I have the ability to carry water, medical supplies, start fire, some comfort with a stool. Maybe you're a reviewer, or maybe you want camera equipment. I have some things here to handle that. I have my tools and the ability to process wood. I have the ability to make food, so the ability to possibly cook yourself something. I also have some shelter options, a hammock, and I have myself here a couple of different tarps, and some things that I think will really come into play depending on exactly what you're trying to do. So at this point, let's really dive into the details, and we'll try to get different parts of this kit into the Maxpedition TT26. Now again, trying to take into consideration what my typical day trip would be like. Now, regardless of the trip I'm going on, some things are going to be standard. I'm always going to have a med kit, and I'm always going to have the ability to make a fire. I don't care where I'm going, that's going to be a standard. So let's start with that and see where it goes in this bag. And so I've been working on my med kit. It really requires a few different components. So as we look here, some basics, bandages, things like that, my actual med kit, and different supplies that I need. I actually even have myself a splint. So getting into this here, I have found that there's a sort of unique and interesting part of this bag. Now this may vary depending on everybody's individual needs. The first thing is you definitely could get this right in the front of this pack. No problem. Getting my med kit and sliding it in here. It's going to be just a little bit tight in my current configuration. However, it will go. So as I get my bandages, sliding them in here, this all does work. What about that splint? Well, I can get that in there too. And that all does work. However, I have found that there is another interesting part that may work a little bit better, and depending on the configuration of the bag. We'll get into that in a little bit. So the other place I found is kind of interesting, and it makes for, I would say, an accessory pouch that some people may not think about. If you look at this bag, this does have this exterior flap that opens all the way. But if you look at this portion behind the pocket on the inside, you actually do have this area right here, which is nice and wide and open. So if my intent is to keep this flap in the down position, well, that makes this a great spot for my med kit. And this actually fits in there perfectly. No problem at all. Everything fits in there nice and contained, nice and organized, and is just a perfect spot. So that, for me, I think is a great place to start. So that's my med kit. And the advantage to putting my med kit there is now on this front pocket. And you'll see this bag does struggle a little bit. Well, I shouldn't say a little bit. This bag struggles a lot with competition of space. So now that I've put my med kit back there, this front pocket does get quite tight. However, I can put my fire kit in here. So that's what I am opting to do. So sliding this in, there is my fire kit, and that works mighty nice. So slide that right in there. No problem. So far, mission accomplished. The two things I guaranteed want to have in here, my med kit and my fire kit, you can check that box. Now the next thing I'm definitely 100% of the time going to have with me is water. I'm either going to need it because I'm exerting energy and I need a drink, or I'm planning on cooking something. So chances are water's going to be an important part of my kit. So I have a few different representative types of bottles here. Here I have your typical Nalgene. Here I actually have a Maxpedition branded canteen, so that, USMC style, kind of military style canteen. And I also have a 1 liter titanium pot. Now obviously water can vary from person to person and how they like to carry it. Some people may opt for a water bladder, other people some sort of a container. But I think these are at least a reasonable representative sample of something that you may be interested in carrying. So if I had to get these in here, well, how would that work? Let's just say I was only going to take one of the containers. Well, regardless, either one of these is fairly similar in overall diameter. The height's not going to matter too much. So at this point, let's go with the titanium bottle. And we're just going to slide this right down and into place. Now, if you did want to carry the canteen, will this fit? Well, let's take a look here. Just popping this out of the actual Maxpedition holster here. Popping that down and trying to slide this in. That will also fit very nicely. So depending on what type of bottle, you can see how these will fit. That actually fits in there very well. And if I did want to use this particular piece, which has MOLLE adapter, well, where would this go? This bag having absolutely no MOLLE at all. And that's part of the, I think, sort of appeal to people in this prepared citizen lineup, is the fact that it's a little more gray man, less MOLLE, less laser cut MOLLE, and a little more streamlined look. Now, that's a pro and a con. Yeah, you get the gray man sort of aspect, but you're also limited. So things with Molly really are going to be a struggle with a bag like this. But regardless, here I do have my bottle. So moving forward, well, what are we going to start to put on the inside of this bag? Let's say it was a day of maybe bushcraft, and I wanted to, get outside, have a tarp, hang a hammock, hang out, and cook some food. Well, if that's my goal, let's make that our plan. So moving forward here, I got to get my cook system in here. Now for my cook system, you will see I have assembled a basic, I would say, jet boil style cooking kit. I also have a small packable stove and a canister of fuel. So a couple different ways I can go. Now, it's not practical to say you can always have a fire and always cook over a fire. Sometimes you need to bring something to cook. So in this case, I'm actually going to go with the jet boil style stove. It's a little bit larger, and we'll put it in there for now, and if we have to adjust later, we'll do so. Now, can this fit on the outside of the pack? Interesting question. Let's check it out. So will this fit in the side pocket? It will not. So this is too large and cumbersome to fit in the side. I mean, it might go, but it is very, very tight, and I would say not optimum. It'll kind of go. But again, remember what I said about this bag. This does suffer quite a bit from competition of space. And if you look at what that does, and I just messed myself up because I flopped this open, and now my med kit fell out. Well, that's why this bag to me is difficult. That's one of the difficulties that you get into. And you'll see now that this is on the outside, it does bulge into the inside of the bag. And same with the water bottle. You can clearly see that even though the water bottle is on the outside, because this is not gusseted, it does not have the ability to expand outside of the bag, and it actually pushes the water bottle towards the inside of the pack. So competition of space here, definitely difficult. I would say this here on the outside is not really working well for me. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm simply going to place it down and inside the inside. You can see this is craziness. This is not working really all that well. Now, the other thing I could potentially do, and I don't think it's really going to work out, you'll see here there is this zippered pouch. So maybe some of these things, if I'm careful, it would be a little bit better inside the zippered pouch, but it won't all fit. So if I do this and zipper these components and then simply place this inside, maybe that will work a little bit better. Let's give that a shot. So anyway, at this point, now I have my pot set, and there is fuel in here, just so that you're aware. There is already fuel in here. But now, this could potentially be my water. I could also use this as a cup. I could use it as a bowl. So I don't think I need anything else. Maybe possibly a utensil. So here I just have a spoon. This can go anywhere in here. That's fairly simple and straightforward. I'm just going to slide it in there. And as you can see here, I'm just going to pop it right in the back behind the water bottle sleeve. So that's going to work nicely, just to slide that right in inside. Okay, so now at this point, cooking gear, water, med kit, fire kit, I'm doing pretty good. Let's talk about my comfort. Well, as I mentioned, I need myself a tarp and a hammock. So there are a few different ways you could go with a tarp. For me, I would think the bulk of most people would have a tarp approximately this size. Now this is a fairly lightweight tarp. I don't think this is too far out of the norm for many, many people, and especially in a bushcraft scenario. But where does it go on this bag? This is where, to me, I think this bag definitely has some deficiencies. I would have absolutely loved, and let me zip this up real quick and I'll show you. I would have absolutely loved for this pack to have connection points on the bottom of the bag. There's no reason why I should not be able to attach my tarp or a jacket or even, quite frankly, a tent to the bottom of this. This would be perfect. And the fact that this bag is being marketed as a Woodsman pack and doesn't have connection on the bottom, that is very frustrating. So there are a few things that could be done. I have found that the easiest thing may be to slide this through like this, but that's not the most secure. The other thing that could potentially be done, and if you loosen these up just a bit, you can actually sort of pull these loops here and open that up and get a tarp through like this. Now, it's not the most, I would say, conducive to this. This is not the ideal, but it does work. And unfortunately, the bit of difficulty is that in order for this to stay, you really do need to like cinch this whole thing down, and it's a little bit awkward. And you can see as I'm working with this bag, it does not have a lot of structure, and the whole time it's like flopping around, and it's not really rigid and just kind of cumbersome. So this to me is really the best I've come up with in a way to make the tarp fit and fit fairly well. So now that I have the tarp, well, what about the hammock? And before I talk about the hammock, you could potentially go with an even smaller tarp and put it on the inside. This to me is a 10 by 10. It's extremely small and lightweight. Unless you have a super high, I would say, like performance and, you know, extremely lightweight 10 by 10 tarp, you're really not going to get something down this small. So to me, again, this is a little more indicative of the typical size that most people would probably have. And with the tarp, chances are you may have some tie-outs and maybe some stakes. So getting these inside, well, now, again, popping this open. Do I go down the front and unzipper this? Well, now my zipper's down here underneath the tarp, and that's a little bit awkward. It is a double zipper, so now I need to remember to bring both of my zippers up to the top. So sliding this up, there we go. So now if I intend on using that front access, I can do that. But you'll see that now that I've unbuckled this, that these straps loosen up, and now this tarp is kind of flopping around. So that drives me crazy. The inability to keep things like tied down and tidy. This is just such like a floppy setup. I really do struggle with it. So instead of going through the front of the bag now, so I don't run into that problem, what I'm gonna do is keep this clipped, if I remember to keep this clipped. Satchel this all back down, keep it nice and tight and taut so that my tarp doesn't fall back out. Now I'm going through the top of the pack, which is limiting the overall functionality a little bit, but that's fine. This fell out again. I need to put that back in there. There we go. So now that I'm committing to not going into the front of the bag anymore, this should stop falling out, and hopefully my tarp stays where it is. Now, opening up this way, I can get my tie-outs, and inside here, there is some different organization depending on what you're trying to do. Now, keep in mind, I've already put my pot down in the bottom, and I think I'm gonna take these tie-outs. There are mesh pockets down and inside, and I'm trying to get these down into the mesh pocket, but the problem is it's extremely tight, and I'm struggling because the water bottle is pushing against the inside and really making that mesh pocket tight. And it's a rigid mesh. The mesh doesn't have any give. It's not like it's a stretchy mesh. It's a rigid mesh. So to get these tie-outs in there, I can't really go on the side of the water bottle. I'm gonna go in the opposite side now, stuff these down and in there. And as you can see, at this point, now I have my tie-outs down and inside in that mesh pocket. And the stakes shouldn't be a problem. I'll just slide these down next to the tie-outs, and that'll be okay. So, okay, that takes care of the tarp. Now, onto the hammock. Now, I know there's a bunch of different types of hammocks. I'm gonna use the average. This is roughly the size of an E&O, I would say like double hammock. And the E&O straps. So if you're familiar with the company E&O, this is about the size of what you'd end up with. I'm simply, like literally just gonna put these down and inside here. That's the best of what I think you could really do for this. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm out there in a hammock, I do like to have a little bit of comfort, so I'm just gonna throw myself in a little camp pillow. And yeah, we'll just pop that right down inside, so no problem. Okay, so next, well, you know, there are a few other things. Maybe if you're in a bushcraft scenario, you need yourself some cordage. So there are, again, some pockets on the inside. I'm just gonna take advantage of one of these mesh pockets. I'm gonna slide my cordage right in there, keep me organized, and that'll work out perfectly fine. So right there towards the top of the pack. And well, moving forward now, let's talk about tools, because this is where I start to get a little bit nervous. Now, as you can see, when I'm using this bag, there's not a ton of structure. So in order for me to gain the structure and kind of tidy things up, I do sort of need to think about zipping this back shut. So I'm going to zip this together. And at this point, this is what I have to work with to start talking about my tools. Now, there are a few things that for the tools I think we want to consider. First is size of tool and what your intended use is. For me, let's just say we're going to process some wood. Well, I may need myself a saw, and this is a buck saw. I mean, this is very impractical. It's way bigger than the bag. Now, you could, in theory, maybe at this point where I have an extra pocket here, slide this down and in, but that's, again, binding up on something inside the bag. I can feel something protruding here, so I need to kind of try to push that out of the way, but that's not going to work. And theoretically, maybe I could get it further down, so if I could use this and clip it, that might work, but there aren't really any lashing points, and this is intended on being a handle, and there are no compression straps. So like, this could have possibly gone on here had there been some compression straps. I could maybe add something, but there's only this grab handle. If there was some daisy chain somewhere, maybe I could figure something out, but this to me really isn't going to work, so I think I need to find myself another saw. So I've now gone and got my Silky Pocket Boy. I don't need the case, but we'll just keep the saw. And does this go in my bag or out of my bag? I don't know, outside pocket for now, I guess. We'll put that in there, that's fine, not a big deal. And so now that I have a saw, well, do I need a knife? Do I need an axe? Well, let's talk about axes. Now, I don't personally own a full-size axe. The biggest axe that I do have is my Gränsfors Scandinavian forest axe. And again, you can see this is pretty large compared to the bag. And again, how do I get this on the pack? Now, does this go in the front? I mean, I have this sort of loop here, but now my tarp is in the way, so do I take my tarp out? And then this, ideally, you would slide the handle down and then flip this over, but that doesn't work, so that's not gonna happen. And this does nothing, because if I pull it up and through here, well, then it just falls out. So what? And now there's this weird part where this opens up. Now, theoretically, this would be kind of cool if I could take this and drop it down and through like this, and that would be cool. So that's starting to work. But then again, there's no structure to the bag, so then it flops down. But maybe, I don't know, this to me is just awkward and weird, and I don't think this really works very well. And again, no compression straps on the side to even account for this. And to me, the definition of a woodsman is the ability to use an axe or a buck saw. So that to me is a big part of this, and to not even have the ability to put this on there is a frustration. So what if we go down a size? So this is the Gränsfors small forest axe, which is much more manageable for this size pack. But again, we're still dealing with all the same problems. So if I'm going to take this and slide it down and through, the head of the axe is far too big. This loop here, should be big enough to allow the axe to swing into place, and you should have the ability to clip it up high. That would actually hold this, which would be nice. And think about if I had the ability to put my tarp underneath, I'd be mint right now. I wouldn't be dealing with competition of space, but as it is, if I can even possibly get this mounted, so maybe I could do this in a weird way, and then get my loops back out. Where did they go? Let's try this. Stuff this back through, and that's getting too tight. Oh, maybe I can do it and stuff that in. I don't know. I'm like yanking at stuff now and stressing things. I don't like stressing my equipment. Kind of managed to get this in there. That's better, and voila. So now I have my tarp and my axe, and that's kind of working, but this whole scenario down here is kind of wonky. And now that it's yanking on the bag, I know on the inside that's also limiting my capacity. But at least I now have an axe and a tarp and my hammock and my cook kit, my fire kit, and my first aid kit. Not bad. I'm getting there. Okay, next, a knife. So if I have an axe, I don't need a large knife, but I do want to talk about some large knives. So for example, here's just an example. Here's a BK9. So if you wanted a BK9, now there's a number of different sheaths. This is not the factory sheath. I'll get into the reason why. This is an aftermarket leather Kydex version. But what if you had a dangler style sheath and you wanted to connect it to this pack? How would you do it? I don't even know how I would approach it other than, again, putting it in a pocket, but then I don't have any compression straps, because this would work if I just had the ability to put a compression strap around here. Compression straps to me on a Woodsman bag are critical, and I don't have them, nor do I have any way to add one. So that's a no-go. Now the reason why I didn't use the factory sheath is because here I have the Topps Dart, which does come in a traditional sort of, ballistic nylon sheath, which is what the actual BK9 does come with. So here's the example, but the same problem. I wish I could just lash this to the pack. And again, no molly, no connectors, no compression straps. I could easily slide this in here, but that doesn't allow me to. I'm already consuming the whole front of the bag. Now, could I, in theory, if I wasn't running my axe, possibly do something here? There's no connection points on the front of this. To me, this should also have some ability to connect. Why is this just open plain fabric? This should have connectors or the ability to add straps. And at least at that point, I could probably lash something on here or to the pack. So like, can I mess around and make something work? Yeah, sure, I guess I could like feed this through here and then like down and through, and then like ultimately I'd be tying this all together. And then what? Get my axe back up and through this, and then satchel this all back down, I guess. I mean, I can kind of make it work, but I don't know. I mean, I could do a better job. So, if I needed to tighten this up, I could. But that's still crazy to me. Let's just get rid of this altogether and go with a different option. So now I'm not able to use my full-size knife. So I'm going to go with a quality Kydex option. Here, a smaller belt knife. This is my TFK T17.5 5-inch blade. So actually a fairly reasonable companion knife to go with the axe, which I think is realistic, and for some general bushcrafty type of tasks. Now this does have the ability to clip this. So even this would almost work now. Finally, I have an option where I can get on this side webbing, and this is kind of cool, and this could be spaced out to accommodate. I'll do that real quick. And so now fashioning this onto the pack this way, that's not terrible. Now it is a little floppy, but that's not the worst, and that kind of works. And what if you had something more like a Mora? Now this is actually the cold steel fin hock, but very similar to a Mora sheath. Well, where does this go? How does this clip on? At this point, do you just stuff it down into the pack? Okay, sure. So I'm getting there, but this bag is so awkward, and it's just not comfortable looking, and it's going to be a pain to work out of. So anyway, moving forward, well, now it's winter time, and I need some, oh, look, my med kit fell out. Do I need another place for this? I'm just going to jam it down inside this at this point and get it back here. I'm tired of dealing with it. I need my hat. I need my gloves. It's winter time. Again, just going to slide them in there. I need myself my fleece. So, again, not a lot in the way of lashing points. The outside of the bag's getting crazy. Do I just stuff this inside here? Well, will this even fit? Getting into it here, zipping this up, kind of. It's going to be close. And I did it. All right, good news. I'm ready to go. Or am I? Well, even if this was my basic kit, I brought a cook kit because I need to eat. Where am I going to put my food? I'm out of space. This bag is completely jammed. It looks crazy. Things are awkward. It's bulging in the back. How does this even ride? So getting this on here. Okay. My hip belt, which not too bad. It actually kind of makes it. I got a little more left on the straps here if I needed to. No padding at all. So even with all this gear, I have nothing to protect my side. So after a while, I can tell you this will definitely dig in. And the sternum strap, well, at least that's a good thing. So that works. This is not terribly crazy feeling on my back. A little weird and bulgy now that I have all this stuff in here. So I don't know how it's going to be in terms of comfort. Now I'm 6'1". I have roughly, I want to say 21 inches from the top of my shoulder blades down to the middle of my back, which is typically how you'd measure a backpack for size. And you can see here, this is quite short in that dimension. So maybe a little bit better for someone a little bit shorter. However, this will work. Again, kind of crazy. I'm not thrilled with the organization. I have a ton of stuff here still on the ground. I mean, I have knife sharpener, I have batteries for my camera equipment, I have a stool in case I want to sit down, I actually have toilet paper in case, I have a problem in the woods, you never know, flashlights, poncho, what if it rains? So again, thinking about this for the outdoor bushcraft and sort of day scenario, it's awkward. You can see this whole time it's been a struggle. Now, that's me trying to pack the bag. Can you imagine working out of this in the outdoors? Very frustrating. I think if Maxpedition could really just separate that EDC from the Woodsman bag, make it completely separate and just focus on one thing, it would have been overall better off. I do appreciate the innovation in some of the thoughts in the design. I just think this is missing some key features, and especially for that woodsy outdoor application. So overall, like I said, as you can see, the TT26, it's a bit of a struggle. So all right guys, there you have it, a look at the Maxpedition TT26 loaded up now for that outdoor woodscraft, bushcraft application. As I mentioned, the entire time, very, very difficult to work on and out of this bag. I think the organization is very, very much in competition with itself. So each move you make has a counteraction. You really need to be careful. You really need to think about it. I think the ability to lash tools is greatly limited. The lack of compression straps is a big downfall. The ability to really put something on the bottom of the pack would have been great and really would have helped out a lot. Just a struggle, and I like Maxpedition gear. I think generally they think things through very well. I just think this TT26 kind of misses the mark, and specifically for that outdoor wilderness and bushcraft application. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.